Hello, friends. Today I want to talk about how narcissists steal your free will. But in order to understand that, we're going to look at what is our will, right? What's the difference between my will and my free will? How is it that a narcissistic person can steal that, what it looks like? And then we're going to talk most importantly about how to get it back or how to start living in harmony with it once again. And that's where narcissistic abuse meets complex PTSD recovery. So if you want to break out of this, make sure you watch to the end. Okay. So that being said, let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a life and relationship coach. I'm super passionate about helping people overcome narcissistic abuse as well as complex PTSD and childhood trauma. I'm the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, which is a monthly membership where we meet live on Zoom and we work through these side effects together. So if you feel you can benefit from more weekly live assistance, make sure you check it out. If the link doesn't work, it's because the doors are closed. The doors open the first 5 days of every month. So make sure you're watching for the times when the doors open. All right, so let's talk about free will. All right, so we are all created with free will, meaning we aren't like animals that are operating through instinct, right? Where we're pre-programmed to do things, not because we consciously choose, but because that's how we're programmed. No, we're not like that. Nor are we like robots, where we don't have any kind of cognitive thought to what we're doing. Again, that would be like a computer program without the consciousness. That would be like our subconscious without our conscious mind. No, we're made to have both. We're allowed to shape who we want to be. We're allowed to have our own passions. We're allowed to enjoy certain things and dislike other things. We're allowed to agree with some people and not see eye to eye with others. Like all of that is our will. It's the collection of all of our preferences, all of our desires, our passions, our likes, our dislikes. That's our will, right? Free will is having the ability to make the choices that allow us to live according to our personal preferences. Okay, so that being established, what does that have to do with narcissistic people? Well, if you were raised with a narcissistic parent, or if you were in a long-term relationship with somebody that was high on the scale of NPD, then that free will was no longer free. In fact, it was no longer even yours anymore. There was no price you could pay to be allowed to operate as yourself, to live in harmony with your own preferences. That was stolen from you. And what happens is you begin living in harmony with the will of the person high on the scale of NPD. Okay, so what does that look like? So in childhood, imagine every time you are yourself, right? And it could be that one day you're angry and upset about something. You're punished for it. Another day, it could be that you're simply happy and you're enjoying whatever it is you're enjoying. And suddenly you're yelled at. Something bad happens. Or maybe you express your viewpoint and you're like, oh, I like that. Or children are super honest. So maybe you express your opinion on the bad behavior that your narcissistic parent is doing. And you say something like, that's being mean, or you don't love me. And you are expressing something that is in alignment with what you are feeling. It's congruent with how you are seeing the world, how you're seeing the other person. And suddenly you're met with narcissistic rage or punishment or emotional pain. What that is ultimately teaching a child is that they are not allowed to be themselves. They're not allowed to choose the feelings that they want to feel. They're not allowed to enjoy the things they want to enjoy. They're not even allowed to have a correct perception. of something that shouldn't be happening. So what happens is that child, because it's in that subordinate position, right? And because to a child, their survival's on the line. So what the child will do is, as a coping skill, they will give up their free will. They will stop being the emotions that they would normally be, liking the things they would normally like, or expressing their reality. They stop and they begin living in harmony with the will of the toxic person as a survival coping skill. So instead of checking in with their will, their preferences as to how am I feeling, what do I need, what do I want, it becomes, how is the narcissist feeling? What do they need me to be so that I don't cause any rage? What do they need me to be so that I can regulate them? Now, obviously, that thought isn't as clear. That's really something that's taking place on an unconscious level, but that's what's happening in the brain. And it's the same thing with adult relationships. If you're in a relationship with somebody and let's say you love to exercise, and every time you exercise, it's met with something negative. Let's say you love to wear makeup, okay, and you're criticized for it. When your personal preferences are under attack for a long period of time and you don't realize that that's abuse, okay, and I say that because if you come from that kind of a childhood, it can feel normal to have somebody treating you that way. What will happen is you will stop living in harmony with your preferences and you will change. You will change and start, as that coping skill gets kicked on, you'll start living in harmony with what you think the other person wants you to be. With narcissistic abuse, you are being trained and conditioned to feel as if you are not allowed to have your own preferences. You're not allowed to do what you love unless you get approval, unless you have some kind of sign or some kind of stamp of approval from something outside of self. You're not allowed. You're also being conditioned and trained to, instead of check in with self in life, right? Asking yourself, how do I feel? What do I want? You're being trained to flip that focus so that you're asking yourself, how does he or she feel? What does he or she need? What does he or she want me to be, think, or feel? Now, when I was in different relationships in my life, had somebody told me that I was giving up my free will, my first thought would have been to reject that because it sounds crazy. Like, who would do that? Who would stop living as who they really are to try to make somebody else happy? Well, the answer to that is usually somebody that had childhood trauma for whatever reason. If you've had childhood trauma, that is something that you can easily get sucked into, because what happens is it kicks on old programs, old subconscious programs from childhood. And when those programs get kicked on, it can be really confusing. It's almost like you're at war with yourself between your conscious mind and what you know is good for you, what you know you want to do, what you know is right or wrong, and your subconscious, which seems to be driving you towards things that consciously you know aren't good for you. Okay, that's what happens because of childhood trauma. So in essence, a narcissist tends to pick people that have trauma wounds because of that exact reason. Somebody that's been through trauma is going to give up their free will, is going to give up their identity, their desires, their passions in an effort to make that person happy. I always say narcissists pick quality people. Okay, so let me rephrase that. They want somebody that has a lot to offer because they get narcissistic supply by draining you of who you are, of stealing your free will, of personality swapping with you, okay? And that's what fuels them. So they pick a quality person. So I just want to kind of clarify what I said, because they don't pick somebody that has nothing to offer. They pick quality people, and then they get their narcissistic supply by taking that from you, by feeling that powerful, because it is a tremendous amount of power. If somebody hands over their self-power, their free will, something that God himself gives and doesn't steal, and they can take that, that's a huge power trip for anyone that's high on the scale of NPD. Okay, so that's how they do it. What can you do about it? If you're watching this video and you're thinking, oh my goodness, like I've given my power away. I don't live in harmony with my free will. I don't live in harmony with my preferences, my needs, my desires. What can you do? The first step is to do what you just did. It's not easy. It's not easy to look within. For example, it's easy to stare at the narcissist and say they are stealing my free will. And that statement is true. But the second half of the equation is, what am I allowing to take place now that I know? And that's not easy to look at, because it hurts. It hurts to look at what we've allowed to take place. It hurts to look at kind of how we've treated ourselves, okay? So this part of the healing is uncomfortable, but it's the first step. The first step is acknowledging it. The second step is to start giving yourself clarity as to what your preferences are. If you've been in a relationship for a long time with somebody that's high on the scale of NPD, you've probably lost yourself. You probably don't even know what you like. What's your favorite color? What are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things that mean the most to you? You may not even know. So the second step is to start gaining that clarity. And that's exactly what we're going to do next month, in the month of March, in the School of Transformation. We're on a 3-month post-traumatic growth journey. The first month, we talked about the nervous system. This month, we're going over the limiting beliefs that you wind up getting stuck with because of narcissistic abuse. They become part of your subconscious programs. We're learning how to uproot them, how to upgrade them. Next month, it's about getting that clarity, because we can't grow and move forward until we start putting that focus within and really gaining clarity as to who we are, what are our boundaries, and how can we get those authentic pieces of ourselves back after trauma. So if you feel like you can benefit from that, make sure you watch. Those first 5 days of March are the only days that the school is open. Come and join us and continue this post-traumatic growth journey with us.